as you're watching this video, I really want you to just take a moment and kind of close your eyes and try this for me. So as you sit there, just what is your mental representation on the inside of your mind, what I call the movie of your mind, of people who you perceive has authority over you? In the same way, how do you perceive people that's equal to you? And lastly, how do you represent, on that movie of your mind, how do you represent the people that you perceive as lower than you? Okay, you can open your eyes if you close them. So, were they different? Chances are they were. So like for most people I find, so if I give an example, I chatted with a client of mine the other day, and he explained it like this, like he physically used his hands when he explained these representations. So he said he used his one hand to represent himself. He said, like, this is me. People who I perceive as authority over me, he represented with his hand above him, like this. People who he perceived as equal, his hand was obviously equal. And people he perceived was lower than him, his hand was lower. So this is the cool thing about our mind, in my mind, is that we have these representations, but at the same time, I now want to know from you is, how does you representing people in your mind, and it could potentially be the same as this client of mine, maybe it's different, or in all likelihood it is different, but the people that you represent, how does it affect your behavior to them? So I'll give you, so again, back to my client, like what he did was, people who he perceived in authority, he couldn't speak with him. People who was equal than him, he could be himself with him. People who he perceived lower than him, he felt he was like a martyr to them, and he almost like felt terribly sorry for them, and that affected his behavior to them. So how does this affect yours in terms of your interaction with these people? So the cool thing about, as I said earlier, about our mind is that we can shift these things. So I'd like to have some fun if it's okay with you. So what happens if you take these people that are in authority positions and let's say, as an example, you also perceive them that they were higher than you? What happens when you make yourself as high as them in your mind? And how does that change how you view them and your beliefs about them and how you look at them and how you can interact with them or your behavior can be towards them? In the same way, these people that are equal to you, what happens when you shift yourself lower or higher to them? Or you make yourself bigger or taller? And these people at the bottom, what happens to them when you go down to their level or they come up to yours? There's of course other ways that you could have represented this in your mind. Like I can remember in my personal life, there was this individual where I just couldn't speak with him. Like I didn't understand it. And the first time I became aware of like how I represented people on the inside of my mind, it was like when I thought of this person, all I saw was a foot. And his foot was about as high as me. So it made sense to me that I couldn't speak with him. So what I did mentally was like I shrunk him down to my size. And in fact, it's always funny, like when I think of how I think of all people in the world at this point in time, I perceive everybody as the same size. Like I'm not the biggest guy in the world in reality, but literally in my mind, I perceive everybody as big as me. Or the opposite, myself as big as everybody else. So I'm like a really poor judge. If people tell me, no, but that guy's taller than you, I'm like a really poor judger of that, because to me, we're all like this physically the same height. But in the same way, it affects my behavior, because now I can relate to people in like the way I would relate to potentially a beggar on the street is in my mind similar to how I would relate to a person I perceive as higher than me, because in my mind they're not higher than me, we're all equal. Now I'm not saying you have to think of it like me, but that's the beauty, is you can take your mind and that mental representation and shift it in a way that will benefit you, so that you can relate to people in life in the way that you want to relate to them. Now, if you're in this position that you maybe struggle with this, but you know there will be benefit for you in understanding this idea and concept a bit better, and you need some help with shifting the people in your mind in the way that you want them to be shifted, but you're struggling with it, or you think you need some help with that, then go to my website. There's a button, Grow Your Game. Click on that and let's start this conversation to help you, so that you can relate to people in a way that suits you, so that you can like build the relationships that you want to build.